Hi, welcome. Enjoy the content, subscribe, and turn on notifications.
When Derek told Claire that he had found the perfect house in a more secluded and safe neighborhood, she got excited right away. It had been months since they talked about moving, looking for more comfort and privacy. He was always traveling for work and wanted to make sure Claire was well settled in a quiet place. With his demanding job and non-negotiable commitments, Derek left everything in his wife's hands. She, who always had an organized personality and liked dealing with changes, took on the mission with enthusiasm. She chose the moving company, coordinated the furniture transport, sorted out what would be donated, cleaned the old apartment, decorated the new spaces, and handled the last details. She was proud of the result. But in the middle of this process, Claire met Zachary. He showed up on the first day of the move, when she was struggling alone to carry up a bookshelf. Zachary offered to help with a calm smile and disarming friendliness. He said he lived in the house across the street and that, since he was off work, he could give a hand. Claire hesitated for a few seconds but ended up accepting. He was agile and practical, seemed like he had done it before. He assembled the furniture, adjusted the shelf, hung a mirror on the wall, and even offered to fix a small leak in the bathroom. Claire thanked him, served coffee, and the two talked for half an hour. They exchanged names, spoke about their routines, the previous neighborhoods where they had lived, and even laughed at some funny situations with service providers. That light conversation was something Claire didn't realize she needed at that moment. In the following days, Zachary started showing up frequently. Always with some excuse, checking if the leak had stopped, asking if she needed help with the curtains, giving a tip about the automatic garage door. Claire found it polite of him, even kind. And since Derek was still traveling, she saw it as a way to make the adjustment to the new house less lonely. She began to look forward to the neighbors' quick visits. On certain days, they talked for hours. Zachary shared funny stories from work, talked about his childhood in the countryside and a frustrated trip to Alaska. Claire, on her part, started opening up more than she should have admitted. She talked about the empty routine, the long days, the feeling of being stuck in time. She didn't complain about Derek, but she also didn't hide that she missed something. Zachary listened carefully. The closeness grew without them realizing how much they were crossing boundaries. It started with a longer touch while handing over a cup. Then came a compliment that seemed innocent, but made Claire blush. Until 5 days after the move, Claire asked for help to hang a heavy picture frame. Zachary entered the house as usual. After securing the frame on the wall, he stood there looking at the image. She approached to look as well. The silence stretched. Claire turned her face, said something random, but Zachary interrupted her with a kiss. She didn't back away. For a few seconds, she hesitated, maybe by impulse, maybe by need. But she didn't resist. The two spent that afternoon together, as if it was part of a parallel reality, where consequences didn't yet exist. When the clock marked 6 in the evening, Zachary said goodbye and left as if nothing had happened. Claire stood in the middle of the room, staring at the door, feeling her heart beat irregularly. Part of her felt alive, another part felt ashamed. She thought about calling a friend, but gave up. Took a long shower, prepared dinner as if it were a normal day, and avoided looking in the mirror. In the following days, regret came and went just as fast. Zachary's visits continued, though less frequently. They avoided each other for a few hours, then talked again, looked at each other with guilt, but allowed themselves one more moment together. Claire, who thought she was strong, realized she was letting herself be carried away. Not by love, but by distraction, lack, emptiness. She started hiding things from herself before even hiding from Derek. Everything seemed out of control, but Claire still tried to convince herself that she knew what she was doing. She thought that, with time, it would pass. That it was a phase, a mistake, an emotional failure that could be buried as easily as it was created. She didn't imagine that Derek, even miles away, already sensed the change. And that what seemed under control was actually about to collapse. Derek returned from his trip 3 days after the official move. He was tired, but curious to see how the house had turned out. As soon as he opened the door and took the first step, he was surprised by everything in order. The furniture was well placed, the frames in the right spots, the kitchen already organized, and even aromatic candles lit in the corner of the living room. It was as if they had been there for weeks. Claire appeared smiling, said it had taken a lot of work, but was happy with the result. He praised her. Said he hadn't expected to find everything so ready. Commented that it almost seemed like she had hired an extra company to speed up the process. Claire laughed and simply replied that she had managed it on her own. During dinner, he kept praising her. Noticed that the bedroom was set up, the bathroom with personal items in place, and even the clothes in the closet. Claire thanked the compliments, changed the subject, and avoided going into details. At no point did she mention Zachary. She preferred to keep the version that she had done everything alone, with effort and patience. Derek, relieved by the condition of the house, didn't press further. But he kept that uncomfortable feeling that there was something behind her silence. The next day, Claire said she had to go out to take care of some pending matters, and Derek took the opportunity to walk around the neighborhood, get to know the surroundings. He knocked on 2 neighbors' doors and was warmly received. Exchanged a few words about the neighborhood, safety, the structure of the street. And then, finally, he crossed the street to the house in front. Zachary answered with some surprise. Opened the door, stood there for a few seconds, and then forced a smile. Derek introduced himself, thanked him for the warm welcome to the neighborhood, and tried to start a conversation, but the man kept a contained tone, almost uncomfortable. Said he was leaving, that he had a delivery to pick up, and that they would talk later. Back home, Derek mentioned briefly his visit to the neighbors. Claire, preparing coffee, paused for a second upon hearing Zachary's name, but quickly disguised it. Simply said that he seemed to be polite. And went back to stirring the cup. That half-second pause wasn't unnoticed. At night, already lying beside her, Derek remained silent for a long time. Closed his eyes, but his mind raced. Something was wrong. The house arrangement in such little time. The strange behavior of the neighbor. The lack of mention about any help. And especially the way Claire acted since he came back, helpful, but distant. It was the type of behavior of someone trying to maintain appearances. He had seen this before, in colleagues at work, in friends who had gone through infidelities. He started connecting the dots. The next day, before heading to the main office, Derek did some discreet searches online. He wanted to know where to buy small cameras, easy to install and not attention-grabbing. He found a supplier that offered express delivery and ordered everything urgently. 2 days later, before his next trip, the equipment was already in his hands. He installed the cameras himself in strategic points around the house, one in the living room, another in the kitchen, and another near the back door. Connected everything to a monitoring app on his phone. It was discreet, efficient, and almost imperceptible. Claire didn't suspect anything. That month passed quickly and Derek's next trip arrived. A few hours after boarding for his new trip, Derek was in the hotel room, laptop open and cell phone nearby. The house was peaceful. He watched Claire walking through the kitchen, preparing something for lunch. She used her phone often, looked toward the window, and seemed restless. Up until that moment, it could just be paranoia. But at 3:23 p.m., the back door opened. Zachary entered naturally. They greeted each other with a hug that lasted too long. Claire put her hand to his face, fixed his hair, and the two sat together on the couch. Laughed, talked, and within minutes, they were kissing. That scene froze Derek's stomach. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. That was it. The confirmation. For a few minutes, he just watched. Claire, who had said days ago that she had done everything alone, now laughed in his neighbor's lap. The same neighbor who couldn't look him in the eye during a brief conversation. That explained the impeccable arrangement of the house, the silence about the moving process, the tension in the air since the moment he returned. Derek paused the video. Took a deep breath. Leaned his head against the wall and let the anger settle. He wasn't the type to make a scene. He was the type to act strategically. Called his lawyer and explained, without many details, what he needed. Asked that the divorce papers be prepared with urgency. Said he would send everything at the beginning of the following week. Minutes later, he picked up his phone, opened the chat with Claire, and sent a message. I was thinking we could throw a party to celebrate the new house. What do you think about inviting everyone? Your parents, friends, neighbors, everyone. You could organize it? Her reply came in less than a minute. Of course. It will be great, she said, followed by animated emojis. Claire had no idea what was about to happen. Derek turned off his phone, closed the laptop, lay down, and stared at the ceiling. The plan was already in motion. He just needed to wait for the right moment. Claire dedicated herself enthusiastically to organizing the party. Sent messages to the family, called close friends, and handed out printed invitations to the neighbors. Bought floral arrangements, chose a varied menu, hired a catering service, and organized a playlist with songs she knew would please the guests. She told everyone that the celebration was a symbol of a new beginning, a new phase, a happy moment. Even her parents, who lived in another state, confirmed attendance. Claire seemed excited, but inside she was conflicted. Her relationship with Zachary no longer had the same sparkle of the early days. What had seemed exciting now sounded risky, almost uncomfortable. He began pressuring her with messages at odd times, uncomfortable comments, and a possessive attitude she hadn't expected. Nevertheless, Claire continued with the preparations, trying to compensate for her guilt with gestures of dedication. Derek came back home 2 days before the party. Claire greeted him trying to maintain the same energy as before, but there was a slight tension in the air. Claire made a point of emphasizing that she was organizing everything carefully, that she wanted the night to be perfect. Talked about the confirmed guests, the weather forecast, the catering service she had hired through her sister's recommendation. Derek listened to every detail carefully. Limited himself to commenting with a discreet smile, supporting everything. Didn't ask too many questions, nor show anxiety. He was in control. During that first dinner after his return, Claire tried to keep the conversation light. Said her mother was excited to come, that her father had asked if there would be enough parking space. Told her she had considered making a table with photos of the couple, but was unsure if it would seem excessive. Derek, calm, said she could do it however she thought best, that he trusted her taste. At no point did he mention Zachary's name. The next day, Claire spent almost the whole day organizing the final details. Went over the shopping list, checked the arrangements, supervised the setup of the tent in the backyard. Wanted to make sure nothing went wrong. To anyone watching from the outside, she seemed like a devoted wife, excited about the night of celebration. Inside, however, there was a constant discomfort. Since Zachary had stopped appearing frequently, contact between the two had cooled. He stayed more distant, and Claire began to feel the weight of what she had done. Not out of genuine remorse, but out of fear of the consequences. Something inside her said she had crossed a line from which it would be hard to return. And Derek, with his quiet calmness, only increased the feeling that something was about to happen. On Saturday, the guests started arriving around 6 in the afternoon. Old friends, family members of both, some neighbors, and co-workers. Claire greeted each one with a rehearsed smile, holding the glass firmly to seem relaxed. Derek moved around with ease, introduced people, made friendly comments. Everything seemed perfectly in order. It was a common party, one that celebrates achievements. Claire's parents were radiant. Her mother arrived with a simple gift wrapped in golden paper, while her father praised the lighting in the outdoor area. Her siblings played with the nieces and nephews in the backyard, as if nothing was out of place. The music was pleasant. The smell of food spread. Everything was exactly as Claire had planned. Zachary arrived almost an hour after the party began. Wore a light blue shirt, dark jeans, and brought a bottle of wine as a gift. Greeted Claire with a discreet nod and then shook Derek's hand, who welcomed him with a calm smile. No hostility, no look of disapproval. Just cordiality. Zachary seemed uncomfortable, but tried to hide it. Chatted briefly with two neighbors, served himself a drink, and remained on the margins, moving around little. Claire watched him from afar, divided between concern and guilt. Felt her stomach tighten every time she saw him avoiding eye contact. When everyone was already present, Derek stepped away for a few minutes, went to the bedroom, and grabbed a USB drive. Returned to the living room and asked for everyone's attention. Gently tapped the glass with a fork and said he wanted to share a short video, something symbolic, to mark this special moment. Claire, standing next to the dessert table, froze. Felt the blood drain from her face, but forced a smile. The guests gathered around the TV with curiosity. Derek connected the USB drive. For a few seconds, the screen remained black. Then the video started playing. The images were clear, Claire and Zachary, on the living room couch, kissing intimately. Laughing together. Claire running her hand over his face. Zachary touching her waist. The recording was silent, but didn't need sound. The images were enough. The atmosphere changed instantly. Silence took over the entire house. No one moved. Some guests covered their mouths with their hands. Others just lowered their heads. Claire's father was stunned. Her mother began to cry silently. Zachary stared at the TV for 2 seconds, then turned and left through the front door without saying a word. Claire remained motionless. Tried to stammer something, but her throat seemed blocked. Looked at Derek, who didn't even look at her. He removed the USB drive, put it in his pocket, and said calmly, "The lawyers will reach out to you on Monday. I thought it was fair to show this now." And then, simply walked away. Walked to the backyard, greeted his in-laws discreetly, and left in his car, without rushing. The guests, one by one, began to leave the house. Some left in silence. Others still tried to comfort Claire's parents, who seemed shocked. She stayed there, frozen, with teary eyes, surrounded by flowers, glasses, remnants of decoration, and a void that was already weighing heavily. What was supposed to be a night of celebration became the beginning of a collapse. And even among so many familiar faces, Claire understood that from then on, she would be alone. The next day dawned in silence. Claire was still at home, alone, surrounded by remnants of the party. Dirty glasses, disassembled arrangements, crumpled napkins, chairs out of place. Everything was exactly as the guests had left it when they exited in shock, but for her, it already seemed like a ruined scene. She walked around the house as if she were passing through the remains of something that collapsed suddenly. Every corner seemed to carry the presence of someone who wouldn't return. What remained inside was no longer a home. It was just a constant reminder of what she had lost. Derek didn't come back that night, nor did he send a message. His car was also no longer in the garage. Claire tried calling 3 times that day. The calls ended on the first ring. Tried contacting her mother-in-law, but also got no answer. Called her older brother and asked if her parents were okay. He replied in a dry tone, said everyone was shaken and that it would be better for her to take some time. She thanked in a low voice and hung up. The shame still echoed in her head. In that video, she didn't just see the moment of infidelity. She saw the portrait of everything she destroyed by impulse, neglect, and cowardice. On Monday, the envelope arrived by motorbike. Claire answered the door and immediately recognized the office logo of the law firm. It was the same one she and Derek had hired when they bought the house. The man only delivered, asked for a signature, and left without saying anything. She closed the door, sat on the couch, and took minutes before opening it. Inside were the divorce documents. Already filled out. Names of the lawyers, division of assets, confidentiality clauses. Derek had made it clear, she would keep the car and a portion in cash. The house would be sold and the value split. There was no room for emotional negotiation. It was a direct end, without discussion. She signed the same day, without consulting anyone. Zachary tried to contact her once, the next day. Sent a short message, saying he was sorry for everything that happened and wished she would be okay. Claire stared at that message for more than an hour. Wanted to respond. Wanted to ask why he had disappeared when the bomb exploded. But closed the phone and deleted the conversation. Deep down, she already knew he wouldn't be part of that. The relationship between the two was just a sequence of miscalculated mistakes. He had left without looking back because, for him, it never had real weight. Who was now carrying the consequences was just her. The news of the separation spread quickly. Some acquaintances sent generic messages, others just stopped following her on social media. A group of friends she used to hang out with excluded her from conversations. Even colleagues from her mother's old workplace commented. People knew, even if she pretended not to notice. It was as if the shame walked ahead of her, silent, but present in every place she stepped. Claire stayed locked in the house for weeks, without the will to go out, without appetite, without real sleep. Only got up to deal with what was essential, returning rented furniture, talking to real estate agents, sorting out documents. After selling the house, she packed her bags and returned to her parents' house. The same one where she grew up, sharing a room with her younger sister. But now, an adult, divorced, and falling apart. The reception from her parents was polite, but cold. Offered the old grandmother's room, gave her space, but didn't bring up the topic. Her mother served dinner every day without saying a word. Her father limited himself to nodding when they crossed the hallway. The environment was one of silent coexistence, as if they were still trying to digest the disappointment. Months passed. Claire tried to resume her routine. Sent resumes, attended interviews, but responses were scarce. Eventually accepted a job at a small flower shop in the city center. Spent her days serving customers, arranging bouquets, cleaning leaves, and dealing with people who came with all sorts of different stories to tell. There, nobody recognized her. Nobody knew her past. It was like starting over, without carrying the husband's surname, without being seen as part of a couple. Just Claire. Alone, patching her own pieces together. One afternoon, an elderly woman entered the store. Walked slowly and carried a gentle smile. Started chatting about the flowers, said she wanted something special for her daughter's birthday. They chose together, talked about colors, meanings. At the end, while paying, the woman looked at Claire with a vague, but curious gaze. Asked if she wasn't from Huntington Street, the one that had a big party months ago. Claire hesitated, then confirmed. The woman smiled without malice and said, "I remember you. The girl from the nice house." Claire took a deep breath and replied. "I was. But I threw everything away." The woman stayed silent for a second, gave a sad smile, thanked her, and left. Claire returned to the counter, sat down, and stared at the flowers in front of her. For the first time in a long time, she felt a tear run down her cheek. Not from anger, nor from guilt. But from understanding. For the first time, she understood that some choices don't have a return. That regret doesn't undo consequences. That sometimes, the harshest punishment is continuing. Meanwhile, Derek had already moved to another state. Bought a smaller apartment, started working remotely. Never spoke to Claire again. Never mentioned what happened. For him, the chapter was closed. But for her, the memory repeated itself every day, in cycles that hurt slowly. And that's how everything that seemed solid dissolved. In silence, without scandal. Only with truths exposed too much to be forgotten. And a lesson that, unfortunately, arrived too late. Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you won't miss any updates. See you next time.